Hey guys, NFX here. And in today's video, this is not really a video, really. I mean, I'm just going to be doing a lot of talking. But what I want to talk about, if you haven't guessed from the video title already, is the concept of AI in modern music making. Um, I think it's a young enough technology that people have strong opinions about it. I think it stirred up a lot of emotions and debate in the music community. And I just want to talk about that and try to give you guys my perspective on it and hopefully open some eyes if you're one of those people who view it as a threat to the creativity and authenticity of making music. Um, and hopefully you can listen to my arguments about it and obviously make your own decision. But my goal today is to show why accepting AI as a tool, as a useful tool, could unlock creative possibilities, new possibilities, and help you overcome challenges and enhance your own music production. And I don't believe that it comes at the expense of replacing real musicians. As a matter of fact, you could argue that using a digital audio workstation replaces real musicians. So I think that argument is not even a valid one to use, considering that, you know, 20 years ago, maybe more, whenever it was, if you wanted to write an orchestral piece, you had to hire an orchestra. You had to hire the string section, the horns, the brass, the winds, the woodwinds. You had to have a composer. You'd have to have all the sheet music for all the different parts printed and available for everybody. You had to have an engineer to hook up the microphones and record the performance. You had to hire and pay for the space. You know, you had to rent a hall perhaps to fit everybody into it. And compare that to today, where you can load up FL Studio with a couple of VSTs, you know, orchestral, symphonic type VSTs, and you can write your string section and your woodwinds, and you could make something that would have taken hundreds of people, and you could do it potentially without even playing on a MIDI keyboard, just by clicking the notes into the right spot and adjusting the timing of them. I mean, yes, it would be tedious perhaps to do it, but what I'm saying is it's possible to do that today. So I don't think replacing musicians is a valid argument. What is a valid argument, in my opinion, is that the art of creating music, if you will, is oftentimes a deeply personal thing. You know, people write about events in their life and struggles they've had and overcome and things like this, and there is that is very valid. Okay, it is definitely valid. It's about, you know, the process, the struggle, the triumph you feel when you bring an idea to life, and there is a fear that AI could replace all that, and devalue that. And again, I agree that that's a valid argument one can make about it. Um, but to counter that, what I would say is the enjoyment of the music is not always about the creating or creation process. It's about the consumption. It's about the person listening to that song and how it makes them feel, as opposed to how it made you feel when you wrote it. You can write all the music you want and from your heart, and it could make you feel very connected to it. Someone else could listen to it and not feel a thing. And I think AI is the same. You know, you could use AI to help you create some lyrics, let's say, through Chat GPT, and the person listening is going to be the ultimate test for, does it work for them or does it not work for them? Do they connect with what's being said or do they not connect with what's being said? Um, and I don't want to say that the counterpoints to AI are bad, but I just feel like that the cons are outweighed by the pros of using AI if the way you use AI is as a tool. Um, you also need to acknowledge something, and that's that AI is not going away. Okay? It's going to get better. It's going to get more intuitive. It's going to be more accessible to more people. And instead of shying away from it, I think we all should learn to adapt and use it to our advantage. If you think about history and the technological advances that have come around because of it in music production, and that includes the making of the music and the recording of the music, there have always been changes that have led to something better over time. I mean, yeah, you could go back to before there were even instruments, people still had their voices and maybe their bodies to make music, to express themselves, you know, banging on your chest and grunting in a certain way to begin with, you know, and then slowly, you know, maybe flutes made out of wood or shakers where they took a gourd and threw some pebbles in there and then could shake it. You know, these sort of things developed over time. And if you just keep extrapolating that through pianos and guitar and woodwinds and brass and all these other things, all the way up to the electronic revolution where we had synthesizers that could make sounds never before heard, that could modulate those sounds, you know, and you take it all the way up to digital audio workstations where now one person sitting in their garage could do things that would have taken, as I mentioned before, hundreds of people to do. Um, Look at the recording technology. You know, first recordings were done on wax discs, and then tape came along, and then vinyl, you know, then cassette, then DAT, then CD, then DVD, and now everybody's just streaming stuff. And I remember when CDs came out, there was a large argument that it would never be able to replace vinyl because vinyl was just superior in audio quality. And if that's your opinion, I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying CDs only evolved into the next thing, and vinyl is now like kind of a niche that people still use because they're audiophiles and like it, but it's not the main thing. Streaming is the main thing, and you could argue that streaming is not as good as CD in terms of its, they're both digital, but streaming may be at a lower fidelity than a CD or a DVD. Maybe not a CD actually, but you get the point. Um, and I'm sure at every stage there were people that didn't want to accept the new thing because they were used to and liked the old thing. And that's okay as well. But as music makers, I think it's up to you to understand the tools that are available to you. And think of AI, this is how I do it. I think of AI as a collaborative partner. okay? One that, never gets tired, is always available. It can give you endless ideas. Um, some people might use a rhyme dictionary if they're trying to write a song and they've got a few lines and they're like, what rhymes with this? Now you can take your lines and say, put them into an AI and say, give me a follow up line that works with this topic and rhymes with this. And it can do it. And it's still on you to maybe look at that line and say, oh, it's too many syllables or not enough, and alter it into a way that works better for you. AI is not perfect, um, but it can at least help open up some possibilities for you. Um, think about beat block or writer's block. Uh, you might have some old 8-bar loop that you did 10 years ago, and you throw it into the AI and you say, come up with something. It might come up with a melody to go over it, or you might want it to come up with some lyrics that can be sung over it. And that might spark the inspiration. That gets you to go, oh, I can hear it now. I can hear what I want to do with this, and then get you to finish it or get you to expand on it. Um, the way that I think you use it is important in terms of what its value is to you. But I don't think those that hate AI should give it zero value. Because at the end of the day, it's still a person has to direct the AI, has to tweak what the AI gives it, and has to determine if it's even good enough to use. It's like you have in FL Studio now, you have AI mastering that you can use. Um, well, the progression maker is not exactly AI, it's a form of it in the sense that it gives you a chord progression easily that before you would have had to know your chords. You would have had to know, how to common chord progressions. So, maybe you wouldn't know, oh, I'm going 1 4 6 5 or something like that, but now with the chord progression maker, you just have to listen to the chord progression and go, I like that one. I'm going to use it and put it in your song. The scale helper to make sure you stay in the appropriate scale that's in FL Studio. There's lots of tools that you could make arguments for in terms of removing the human element. Heck, there's even tools to put back a human element when you take drums, for example, and then you can run the humanized script on it so that everything's a little off timing and not grid locked to give you, that more human feel. Yeah, I agree. These are things that exist, but I don't see them as problems so much as I see them as the way things are. And maybe they're new obstacles that you need to learn how to navigate, but, you know. But with respect to AI, um, you can use it many ways right now. AI music in particular, you can use it to generate lyrics for you. You can use it to make beat tags for you. You can use it to give you some musical inspiration. You could use it to maybe make hooks for your beats. I mean, think about it. If you're a beat maker trying to make money selling beats, and you could actually put hooks into your beats, that might make some of these beats more appealing to a rapper who can't sing hooks, and so needs something to spark their inspiration. And they hear the hook and they go, "Oh, I can write some bars to this." Um, it might give your beat extra value when you're trying to sell it. Uh, some of you might even be very entrepreneurial and think, well, why don't I use it to make custom songs for people, for any occasion? I mean, a common occasion might be a wedding. And what do? Well, you say, oh, what's the bride's name? What's the groom's name? How did they meet? Do they have any special pets? Do they have kids? What things do they enjoy doing together? And you use AI to come up with some lyrics, let's say, about that, and put that into one of your songs. And now you've got an a custom song about that, and maybe you make it a ballad, and then they that can be given as a gift to somebody, and you'll get paid for it. I don't know. I'm just saying that there's a lot of possibilities that we haven't even touched or thought of yet. I think the biggest thing for most people will be to overcome the beat block and writer's block. Uh, it's just at a point where I think you could take your old beats, maybe throw a few of them in there and see what comes out and see what strikes you. Obviously, we'll get to a point where not only will there be AI mastering, but there may even be AI mixing, AI effects. I don't know. Um, but with respect to the music making, uh, it's a tool. And don't forget that it's a tool. And no one's going to force you to use it. But you should also not devalue those that might use it in some way just because you have some emotional reason to not like it. Okay. Um, when I was first starting, maybe not when I was first starting, but at some point when I was running warbeats back in the mid 2000s, um, I actually thought that those people making beats with samples, whether they were loops or little chop sections or one shots, whatever they were taking shortcuts, that they were cheating somehow. They weren't taking the time to understand scales and chords and notes and articulations and a bunch of things like this, right? But over time, I realized no, it's valid. It's very valid. There are people that can do really creative things. Yes, a lot of people just take a loop, throw some boom bap beats on it, and then they call it a day. At least back then, it was not uncommon. But then you had those like Kanye and Jay Dilla and others who really did evolve it to a point where it made a new thing out of something already made. I mean, you still see it to this day. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of times I think it's used too much when I hear some of these newer songs that are based off songs that were sampled from other songs that were sampled. You know what I mean? But I had to change my way of thinking back then to accept it because just because I didn't do it or just because I thought it was a cheat code, uh, didn't make it so. You have to look at the people listening to the music that's created that way and say, are they feeling it? And if they're feeling it, then it's 100% valid. So at the end of the day, I would encourage you guys to not be afraid to experiment with AI music. Um, Remember, it's just another tool to enhance your music, maybe to try something different, to push boundaries. And like with any tool, the outcome depends on how you use it. The artistry is still in your hands. You become with AI, especially when the AI is creating actual music, lyrics, things like that, you become even more of a producer in that way. It's almost not unlike a producer like uh, Dr. Dre or someone who says, I want to do a song and hires musicians to come in and play all the parts. Dr. Dre probably doesn't play that much. Maybe he programs drum beats, but I don't see him sitting down on a bass and a piano. I mean, it's famously he, Timbaland, and others have hired people like Scott Storch, for example, to come in and actually help them to create these things. Those studio musicians are tools to these producers, and I think AI is in many ways like a studio musician that you could come in and bounce ideas off of or get ideas from even. But that's not to say it's replacing them. It's just saying it's a new way of accomplishing it. Because I would guess that most of you hearing me now don't have the budget to hire studio musicians. I know a lot of people, especially on the subreddits, are probably still using cracked software because they can't afford to pay for it. And they're the same ones that sometimes I think are crying about AI replacing real musicians from getting jobs. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of ironic, I guess. But that's not what AI music is about. It's not about replacing musicians. It's a tool for you to help in your production of music. And how you use that tool is important to you. But at the end of the day, I'm encouraging you to just try it out. Give it a shot and see what it can do for you, if anything. And hey, if it can't do anything for you, I envy you, because that means you can sing, you can put together catchy lyrics, catchy hooks, you can, mix really well, and et cetera, et cetera. You probably don't need AI for any of that. And that's a good place to be. But if you're like me, you have holes in your game. I can't sing a lick. I can't even, I've tried. Even with AI, I mean, not AI, with auto tune, uh, I fail at it. So, as I mentioned before, the use of AI has allowed me to add lyrics to my productions, and has really opened up a lane for me personally. I hope that AI can do something for you, and I hope you give it a chance and not be afraid of it and not be angry with it, because it's there for you. It's not there to fight you. So, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.